Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Danville Special Call Board Meeting today at 4 o'clock. We need a motion to approve the budget as submitted, the agenda as submitted.
I make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second, and all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So let's go down to number 2 on finance updates. We do have a reconciliation report. I can go over some of this. I'm not an expert, but I can read. Basically, from the report, the books did balance. We started out with, make this a little bit larger. We started out with a cash in bank of $8,857,000 and 567.36, and we ended up exactly that way as a balance. So that's a good thing. So we know that the books are reconciled. The report's a little bit different than what we've seen before, but seeing that we're between finance officers right now, we'll hopefully get it back to where we were. Dr. Ross, I'm going to segue from this. Do you want to make the announcement?
Sure, I'd love to.
Okay.
We're excited to announce that we do have a finance officer. And our finance officer is one that I am super excited about, and very proud to announce that we have Dr. Stephanie Blevins. She is coming to us from 14 years with United Way. And her resume is impeccable. Her community impact is hard to measure, and we're just super excited as a district to have people on our team. And so I'm elated that she even considered it, but the fact that she's joining us, I think our team is excited as well. So Ms. Moore is going to work on a press release and get that out very soon.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I was at the Constitution Square Festival, and I was walking down the steps of my wife's office, and there was Miss Blevins, and she was walking, and she stopped, and she said, "Mr. Becker, I'm going to see you in about 2 weeks." And I thought, okay. And then it dawned on me, and I said, all right, well, we'll see you soon, and just left it at that, because it was supposed to be kept under wraps until she, I guess, had made an announcement to her board. So, of course, I was like Dr. Ross. I was worried that they were going to make her an offer, and then she was going to refuse to come see us. But anyways, it all worked out well. So thank you for that. And it's exciting. They're big community people, and she'll really be a great asset for the Danville schools. All right, so we need a motion, please, on the bank reconciliation report.
Motion that we approve the bank reconciliation report as presented.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion in a couple of seconds. All those in favor of the motion for the approval of the bank reconciliation report, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Okay, let's move down to approval of invoices. There's always a lot in this. And it's always our typical, we have a lot of our bills that are just the same thing we pay. Utilities, whatever it might be, and then there's things in there that if they're of interest for you all, there's the opportunity to check into it, and if you need to ask about an expenditure, get a hold of Dr. Ross at this point, and then he'll check it out and let everyone know. The one thing I know is that, and Esther's aware of this also, is that, you know, something to be looking out after our utilities, because they're going up. I mean, if they go up at our house, they're going up here. And I know there's been a projection that the gas bills are going to go up anywhere from
Fuel costs are going to be
15 to 20% more. So it's something that we as a district will, and maybe we can come up with some fuel savings, you know, at the buildings. I know we did a program like that several years ago where it actually helped out a little bit. So, hey, and here's Tim.
Yeah, hey.
Hey. Just have a seat right there, that's okay. We're just going through the invoices right now. We haven't gotten to the working budget. So, anybody have any questions or concerns?
I've got a question. So with the new person coming on board for finances, we'll still have that to check in.
Yes.
We're not good.
That'll still be good. That'll still go on.
Good shot. Good shot.
That way, because I know you used to do it and you turned it over to Ms. Esther.
What is it?
She actually will meet with the finance officer and then go through the invoices and expenditures to represent the board and then just check it out. So it's kind of nice. Check it out, all that, so. All right, so we need a motion on the payment of invoices.
I will make a motion that we approve the payment of invoices as presented.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the approval of payment of the invoices as presented. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you guys. All right, now and it's good that we've gotten those taken care of. Tim Lemaster is our financial guru at this point. He's worked with the district actually for about a couple of years as a part-timer, and at times have been a full-timer when needed. So yes.
Wasn't planned that way, but certainly
Right.
willing to help out.
Well, see, that's what you get when you retire.
Yeah, I guess so, I'm learning.
So, but anyways, if you don't mind, if you'll,
Step on that.
yeah,
Now, does everybody have a copy of the working budget?
I don't.
they have it on
I
the
don't
computer.
have anything. Let me have it.
I have an extra copy that
I can make some copies if we need to.
I mean, do we need?
Well, I had one from yesterday.
Big.
Oh, you look at this then. I'll look at ours.
Okay,
You
great.
can use
Are you
mine.
guys okay? Is it should, okay, your internet's not,
No, it's not open.
okay.
Yeah, there's a little summary sheet that you don't have.
Yeah, I'd asked him to do a summary sheet because 42 pages is a lot
Oh, gosh.
to go through.
You gotta make
And
some.
it's almost all numbers. Which some of us are.
No
some of
cartoons,
us
huh?
like numbers now.
Ms.
no
Weathers, if you like a
cartoons.
full one, I got an extra one for it too.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love budgets.
Huh?
I love budgets.
I do too.
Oh, you
I
get it.
got one.
You get it.
Oh, okay.
That's my jam.
So to try to condense it from 42 pages, I have this sheet for you. And of course, I'm going to direct you to the bottom where it says operating funds, capital funds, and activity funds, debt service, and assets. So we've kind of got 5 groupings when we have our working budget. The main ones I look at are the operating funds. Your general fund, which is a catch-all that doesn't end up, in another fund. Special revenue funds, that's your grants, whether it be federal or state. Sometimes you have local grants, that's great too. So that's Fund 2. And food services is Fund 51. So I'm bad to go into talking in numbers. So if I say Fund 51, well, I mean food services.
Okay.
And all this is in here by fund. So if you maybe have one in front of you, if you'll look at page, let's see, towards the very back. And, you might have it here. Oh, I have the monthly report, I don't even have one either. Towards the back, there's a list of funds. It'll say Fund 1, General Fund, Fund 2, and it's very concise. It shows the total revenues and total expenditure. You'll have
It's,
3 years.
Page 46.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, page 40, sorry.
So you'll see a whole page with columns of numbers.
Mm.
That's the 2 previous years and the budgeted year that we've got, that we're in now. And so you'll see all these funds, and they're probably listed 1, 2, 51. And there's certain ones they look at and they say, well, you need a minimum amount for something called contingency. Well, they don't want you to budget absolutely every dollar because something could come up that you need some funds for that. The typical traditional thing is what if a boiler blows up? And do we even have boilers that cost that much now? I don't even know.
Like
Mr.
hurricane.
Dunn's here, he can answer that question for you.
Yes. Boilers. So that's something you don't budget every year because hopefully they don't blow up every year. But it's something might come up that you need additional funds. The base amount, 2%. If you get below that, state's going to be saying, what's going on there? That's really low. And you know, some districts might need a little more than that because of their size. It might not be enough for a boiler. So, you know, they might have one boiler and, you know, that would be a bigger percent than 2% of their operation if it went out. But most districts, 2% is a good number. But to keep the state from coming to say what's going on, 5% is traditionally what they advise. All right, so we'll keep 5%. A lot of what I look at is really the general fund, because if you're looking at Fund 2, the Special Revenue Fund, well, yeah, we have expenditure there, we have a source of revenue. And it's usually either passed through the state or state funds. Food service, we're fortunate here in this district, we've got a good fund balance. In fact, sometimes they say it may be a little too good. You could talk to Tammy about that.
Can I also just interject on
Sure.
food service? Our food service is self-sustaining. I mean, we're very fortunate that, you know, some districts, the general fund is putting in money, but we for years have had a self-sustaining food service organization, you know, operation. So it's important.
It's
Okay,
nice
right.
that if you need some equipment, they're able to cover it. There are districts that don't have that.
And when he says it's too good, it's because they don't want you having too high of extra funds in it, for whatever reason.
Right.
Yeah, that is right. We're not out to accumulate funds, but we want enough to operate for sure. So, let me direct you back to the top of my sheet. Important funding to the school district is revenue from the state. It's often referred to as SEEK, and it's, I show that the guaranteed base has increased this year for the new year. It's 4,100. I guess the last couple of years it's been 4,000. Being a retired finance officer, I thought it would never get to 4,000. So, you know, it's good that it's up to 4,100 now. And it's a bit complicated, but to try to not go into the weeds, Danville gets, and I see a show the net general fund seek that we'll get for the district. Now it's based on a tentative estimate. So we have 3 estimates during the year. We get one in the spring. Often fairly good, but not exact. Tentative's a little better. Come, I think it's March 1st, we'll know what we actually get. And it's based on your ADA. So if you have good attendance, you know, that'll help with the calculation, because they take that 4,100 number times your attendance, and that goes into the calculation. I also wanted to point out your local revenue. Let's see, I've listed your total assessment. There's been some assessment increase. I think some of it's new property. It's not like we just done a reevaluation or changed our assessments. So that's encouraging to have a growing area. Then I figured out the local property tax. So the general fund, how much it gets from your property tax is listed there. And you think, well, it's kind of diminished. Well, as your assessment goes up, you have to put more in the building fund. It's 5 cents per $100, and you have 2 nickels in this district. So the grand total is good, but you have to put a little more in the building fund with the idea that your assessment is gone up. And, you know, when you do have two nickels, the state often kicks in some more money because for most, it seems like for most districts I see anyway, your average assessment per student is less than their given amount. And if that's the case, they'll figure out how much if your assessment was, I think it's over $1 million per student now. They'll chip in the difference if they're able to. Okay, so I wanted to point out a few expenditures. We've got a couple of actuals now. I'm looking at just the general fund, but that's the one we have, that's where the big lever is. The salaries the last 2 years, and then the budget for this year. So you see that there's an increase in salaries. Utilities, electricity, natural gas, we've put a little extra in there because who knows what will happen in there. Also for diesel and gasoline. We've got a budget for buses, and I think maybe the actual year before might have included something other than a bus, maybe a truck or something. And then I've listed total expenditure net of any contingency. So your contingency as a percent of identified funds, and the state says, oh, count this one, maybe not that one. For instance, debt service, where you transfer money into debt service and then you pay it out. No sense double counting it, so they can exclude that one. So your percentage is 21.9%. That would be like tremendous for a really growing city or other municipal government. So I think we've had more like 8 and 10 in recent years. You can think about, well, why is that? And, you know, we've had a lot of federal grant support in different ways, and you probably know better than I do just how that might have affected our fund balance.
Well, and it does. So, I mean, you know, we, obviously in this budget, one thing I was totally impressed with is that us being able, you know, you put a 5% increase on your payroll costs, you know, raises, and then the $1 an hour for certain of the classified folks, which amounted to a lot of money.
Yes.
But to be able to come up and have, basically, this is a conservative budget. One thing I know we've traditionally done with Danville Independent is we have conservative budgets. So a lot of times even this contingency could be larger than even this. But in the early 2000s, there were two years that I remember, and I don't know if you guys were around, some of these guys were around, we were at 2%, barely 2% contingency. And you know, when you don't have basically revenue coming in from July 1 until about November, big revenue, you have to rely on that contingency fund to pay your bills. Yeah, we always prayed that nothing happened, and we got lucky that it didn't.
Certainly, when you have this much contingency, you think, oh, we've got this much money to spend on something else. Well, just remember that your beginning balance, which, you know, what you don't spend in a year goes into beginning balance. That's not a recurring revenue. That's something you might have one time. So you want to look at your current year revenue and your current year expense, rather than think, oh, okay, we've got this beginning balance. Because a lot of times you'll see reports that starts out with beginning balance, and I wish it wouldn't. And then it says current year revenues and current year expense. I wish you would say current year revenue, current year expense, get a net number so that you know, hey, I'm dipping in to what I had from previous years, and I don't get that every year. It's something that's accumulated. Okay, so I think that's pretty much my summary for this, unless we have some questions.
What are the main things that can go wrong? I mean, you've been doing this for a lot of years.
Well, like I say, if you can do projects that are one-time expenditure, it's okay to maybe dip into some of what you're bringing forward. but one important thing to look at, and I did put it on here, is what percent of your total expenditure has to do with salaries and benefits? Because if you get that really high, it's really difficult to cut back if the state says, oh, we're not doing so well. Now, fortunately, I think they're doing pretty well right now. But if they have a year or 2 or 3, and usually they come in cycles, you have several that aren't too good and some that are pretty good, and we don't worry about it so much. But we should always be on the lookout that, you know, we don't get to spending more, or we've got such a big base of expenditure. Now, I think our previous auditor made a point that, you know, we need to watch that we don't get such a high salary as a percentage of our total revenue, that a dip in our revenues, we end up perhaps having to look at the salary cost.
And that's one thing that over the years that it's been an issue with Danville. And it isn't just Danville, but independents generally run up above that threshold that the state likes for you to have, which is about 79, 78%. And we're anywhere, I've seen it anywhere from 82 to 84.
Right.
And it's much harder to bring that down than it is to increase it. So it's kind of like losing weight. Yeah, it's easy to put it on, hard to take it off.
It's like my weight again.
So, in last 2 years, we've actually made a very conscious effort on wanting to do that. But sometimes, just to let you all know, when it comes down to the decisions of hiring practices, you don't want to get into the practice of saying, just get the new teacher because they're $10,000 less than the experienced teacher. And some districts have done that and they've paid a price. So we need to hire the folks that are going to fit our jobs the best, no matter what. And so it's a conscious decision that you have to make. I know, Ron, when you were a principal, I'm sure you were faced with, she's got 15 years experience, or he does, and this person looks really great, but they're just starting out. So I mean, it's a hard decision to make. So I'm hoping that with our new finance officer that we can get back onto working and whittling ourselves down a little bit. I'll have to say that last year everything was executed well. I mean, being that she was basically a new finance officer, I thought that she followed a lot of good advice and came up with a very conservative budget. And so that helps us. But like you said, if you have $8 million carryover,
You only get to spend it once.
you only get to
Show
spend it
every
one time,
year.
and you can't spend all of it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and you know, there's choices you make during the year. Your property tax, if you don't look to take what's available to you, it has a compounding effect. So you miss it this year, you just do compensating, and then the following year, you just do compensate. Well, you missed out on the +4 this year, and the +4 plus the +4 on top of that. And over a long period of time, that can end up to be a lot. Now, I don't suspect that's a problem here. You do a pretty good rate, I think.
Mr. Dunn, for a while we had some issues with the heating, the HVAC over at Bait Middle School. Has that been resolved?
It's in the process now. We got the bids and all that information to the board. That was on the last agenda, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah, Glenn, just to let you know, we're really starting to make progress on that now.
Okay.
It came down to the regular COVID stuff,
Yeah.
you know, where we couldn't get the people to work on it, and then
Yeah.
we did have to push a little bit to get our contractor going, but Mr. Dunn has that well in hand.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think it went up, what, like 100,000 or something?
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, I mean, our equipment cost, or the cost actually went up $100,000.
Well, it's something we're having at the airport, because we got to put in new hangars because of the December tornadoes, and we're just not getting ready to work on it. then we can't put them in because we got a bad foundation, wrong foundation down there, so, interesting.
Does anybody else have any questions or concerns with the budget? Okay. Tim, I gotta thank you very much, because I know this all came together pretty quickly, and I appreciate you sitting down yesterday especially so that we could go through some of these things, and then also pulling this report together is a monumental deal.
He's also been working on the audit as well, so he's been double hard with that. So,
Taking the numbers home with you in your sleep?
You call that roaming? I call it rattling.
Well, I didn't want to call it that. I have a former superintendent we used to get. I would talk in numbers and she talks in numbers.
I like that.
She's a Spanish teacher.
So, does anybody else have any questions?
Anything, any questions about different funds or whatever? I think it is a conservative budget. And Kim put together a lot of it for your kids. I made some adjustments, but it wasn't a lot.
Okay, good show. She loves in good shape.
Yeah, I think so.
Mhm.
You know, in the several months that Dr. Thomas was with us, getting a nickel out of him was pretty tough. So between he and Kim, it was like, wow. I said, all I want's like $200. No. So
They was,
Not in the budget.
in other words, they were squeezing Lincoln and he was crying.
yeah.
You got to do.
So anyways, I'm proud of our financial situation. We're really in great shape. Don't let anybody tell you all that the Danville schools financially are not sound. We are very sound and have been for years.
Keep it up.
Yes, exactly right, and we thank you. So we need a motion, please.
I make a motion to approve the working budget.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second for the approval of the working budget. All those in favor of the working budget for 22-23, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, let's move down to consent agenda. This is basic stuff. You did get a hold of Center about the football game. Everything's good on that. And then Tolliver, I like the way Miss Kelly does things. Let's put 5 things on there and get them approved now. So, which is okay. So does anybody have any questions or concerns about the consent agenda?
It just makes me want to spend more money on some of these fundraisers.
I was gonna say, okay.
It's just the football.
So if there's not any questions or concerns, we need a motion, please.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second for the approval of the consent agenda. All those in favor of approval, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then also, number 4, we need a motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
A second.
We have a motion and a second for
I'm
adjournment.
gonna take care of that.
All those in favor of the adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
All those
Oh,
opposed?
bye.
Thank you all.